Hi, it's Matt. I wanted to talk about event marketing today, and I think we commonly think of event marketing in the traditional sense of a business holding an event. Entertainment venues, nonprofits in a fundraising capacity, your festivals, your in store promotions. I think of event marketing broadly and something that businesses and organizations should engage in regularly. Also, event marketing isn't just B2C, so not just business to consumer. I also tend to think of it as a great B2B strategy. So, quickly, what are some examples of some event marketing? Well, look at Apple's special event. We wouldn't typically think of this as maybe a business event, but when they hold that, and just recently with the announcement of the release of the iPhone 10, the brand new generation of the Apple Watch, etc., that's an event that builds their brand and raises customer awareness. And remember that the event there isn't just for the attendees, obviously, that are, enthusiastic, and it's for a much wider audience. And believe me, there's a lot of stagecraft that goes into that event and events like that. But remember, you can host a thank you event or a roundtable for vendors, competitors in your industry. You can hold a goodwill event that'll help your CSR, your corporate social responsibility, which I talked about in another video, which I'll link below. This could be, you could also be involved in your local community group. That would also bring in, your employees. And you can also hold a traditional event that's built around your business and driving sales, driving traffic, whatever it is your goal is. So the first thing that I would include in what I would term event marketing would be informational events. So this would be like the example I used in the beginning, the Apple events, because those are important in letting customers know and employees know, what's coming, what's new, and it starts to build momentum ahead of the actual launch of those products or services. Now, this is true for Apple, but it's also true for small businesses. Suppose you're adding a new feature to your website. Suppose you have an e-commerce site, it's part of your business, and it's static, and you want to change it to where customers can purchase and pick up in, say, 20 minutes. So really quick turnaround. Could be a great feature. And holding an informational event, and not in the style that Apple would, but just even with, your core customers, your employees, make it something fun, and that lets people know about it, because if they don't know about it, they can't take advantage of it. And this is true with businesses across the spectrum. The next thing I think that gets overlooked a lot is B2B events, so business to business. That's interacting with, in your industry, your vendors, your competitors, your partners, your sponsors, especially if you're a nonprofit. So this is all about building relationships, well, and maintaining those relationships. And those business to business relationships are just as important as the relationships you have with your customers. Especially if you're in an industry that is competitive and you can find areas where you can work together, it can have a lot of advantages. So some examples: you could host an event for your vendors. Not only is it good team building, but it gives you the opportunity to get feedback that can be invaluable to your relationship, and something that takes place outside of maybe your normal discussion of fees and quotes and things like that. The other thing that you should definitely take advantage is if in your industry you have expos or trade shows or conferences, make sure you go to those. Those are important networking events for your business. In terms of your competitors, I think something that can be really effective, and I see this a lot in sort of the beer wine industry. You can also think of small producers, farmers markets. Also, I think of some websites that sort of bring together small producers of products, and this is where you build on your individual strengths, but leverage your industry-wide strengths, and this is mutually beneficial. So those are events you can consider. Also, if you're an online business, or even if you're not, doing online events can be really great. I think in the service industry, this is wonderful if you have clients. So if you're in a professional service industry, providing a forum for people to get information about maybe changes in that industry or services that you provide can be really beneficial and can really make you stand out from your competitors. So next is corporate social responsibility events, CSR events. You could call these goodwill events. And this is an important sort of event marketing because this is where you pair up with, say, a charity or a community organization, something, and make sure that it is something that's part of your mission statement, and hopefully in your business plan you already have a section on your corporate social responsibility. If you don't, be sure to add one. But this is about reflecting your core beliefs. So this isn't so much events that you're doing because you want to drive traffic, and I think it's faulty for businesses to, and I don't think a lot do, but some do, where you do these things because you think it's going to benefit your bottom line directly. It won't. So some examples of this, you could, if you're a restaurant, maybe you sponsor and help set up a community garden. Or if you're a business that has a venue, maybe you host a charity that's been part of your giving plan in the past. Or if you can just gift maybe your product to something, or to sponsor an event outside. If you're following your marketing plan, this is going to keep with your brand and your brand messaging, and that's what CSR events are about. Events aren't always about making money. Okay, last and certainly not least in terms of event marketing would be B2C events. So events built for your customers. So everyone likes those. These are your more traditional events that I talked about at the very beginning. So especially if you're a business that is an attraction or retail space, online or service, you can do events to drive traffic, to drive awareness, to make money. These could be your traditional sales events. These could be adding an element, live music. You think restaurants, they do that all the time. You do a vendor event if you have maybe a venue space. Online events that engage people. I mean, you could go on. I mean, there's a million different events that you could do, and I personally have thought and done probably some crazy ones for businesses. And I think the key with doing events for your customers is to be original and to keep it different. Don't, and not that it's bad, but keep it different. If you do have events that are, and I've seen this with longer established businesses that do maybe annual events or quarterly events, and they keep them the same over time, that's fine and it's good because you can build a brand just around that event. But make sure it doesn't get stale, because I've seen that happen too, where it just And there's no way to determine when that moment in time is going to be, but sometimes it just things go on an upward trajectory until people just become disinterested in the event and don't show up, and everyone shakes their heads and wonders what what happened. So don't do the same thing over again. It gets boring. Also, don't just copy the competition with a, I mean, you should always look at what your competitor is doing very carefully. And if you're going to borrow an idea from a competitor, make sure that it fits your business, because something that works for them might not work for you. And if you are going to do that, make sure you improve it, make sure it fits, make sure you add part of yourself. Don't just copy something because you perceive a business to be successful doing those sort of style events. Events are tricky business, and I'm gonna get into some of the details of how tricky they can be.